50 years ago, Mobil 1 was introduced as one of the world's first synthetic motor oils. Back then, it was literally Mobil 1. There was only one product, one viscosity. Today, there are more than 10 different varieties of Mobil 1 in multiple viscosities. Hi, I'm Lake, the motor oil geek. How many of these new varieties of Mobil 1 are chemically unique or just clever marketing? To get that answer, we need to pull back the label, and to do so, let's go to the lab and find out what's inside those bottles of Mobil 1. Once again, the guys here at High Performance Lubricants have gone above and beyond. They're letting us in here. We're doing all kinds of cool testing to show you the results so we can answer that question. Are these oils just a little bit different, or are they wildly different, or are they the same? To know that answer, we're going to use 4 tests. We're going to use the FTIR right behind me. We're also going to use the PDSC, the KRL, and the ICP, which is going to show us the metals that are in the oil. And from that, we'll be able to piece together, are these oils wildly different, pretty close to each other, or are some of them the same? We're going to know by running those tests. So let's go ahead, start those tests, to show you the results. So we picked 4 candidates to test in 2 different viscosity grades. So we started off with the 5W20. This regular old passenger car motor oil you can buy at Walmart. In fact, we actually got these from Walmart. And it's regular Mobil 1, extended performance Mobil 1, the high mileage Mobil 1, and the truck and SUV Mobil 1. 4 oils of the same viscosity that all meet the exact same API SP spec, but the labels are different. Let's find out what's inside those bottles, behind those labels. We also picked 4 different 0W40 Mobil 1s. We have the new GM Supercar 0W40 that meets the Dexos R spec. We also have the new Porsche C40 GT oil. And we have the Mobil 1 ESP X3 0W40, and we have the 040 European car formula, which we now know is API-SP. That's a recent change to that formula. So we're going to run those 4 0W40 oils, we're going to run the 4 520 oils, and we're going to show you the results from those 4 tests. So it's like a 4x4x4, right? We're going crazy in the lab doing cool chemistry. Let's get started. Mobil 1 was actually the first synthetic motor oil based on polyalphaolefin technology. AMSOIL came out 2 years before Mobil 1 came out, but the original AMSOIL formula was based on ester technology, a different type of synthetic oil. The original Mobil 1 was based on polyalphaolefin technology and then mixed with a Group 1 base oil to carry the additives. Later, both Mobil 1 and AMSOIL changed to a PAO ester blend to solve the seal compatibility issues that cropped up when synthetic oils first came out. So the first test we're going to run is actually one of my favorite. It's the FTIR, which is an infrared method that basically gives you the chemical fingerprint of the oil. And the trace, we can break it down into 2 key areas. Your base oil area and the fingerprint region where you're going to see the additives and some of the other interesting things that are going on. We actually use the FTIR in the used oil analysis we do at Speed Diagnostics. It's one of the ways we can see, is the oil breaking down? You can see all the little things that are going on. So small changes show up here, and the great thing is you only need a small amount of oil. Just a couple of drops on the FTIR scanner, and you have all kinds of information that's super valuable. Oxidation is the chemical breakdown of the oil. In our second test, the PDSC does it. This pressure vessel we fill with oxygen, and then we heat it up and we measure how long it takes for the oil to break down. Because when it consumes the oxygen and that pressure changes, that indicates the oil has broken down. So the breaking point here is the breaking point of the oil, and we measure that in time. So the longer the time before it breaks, the longer the oil will last before it breaks down. And test number 3, that's the hero from our viscosity breakdown video, because the KRL tester uses these tapered bearings to mechanically shear the oil. It can do in 15 minutes what it takes your engine thousands of miles to do, so we can get these results to see how shear stable are these oils. And test number 4 is the ICP, the inductively coupled plasma. It burns the oil. You see, when elements burn, they emit light. And each element has its own unique wavelength of light, which this device analyzes to tell us the presence and concentration of the metallic elements in the oil. This device is used in every used oil analysis lab on the planet to measure wear metals. We can also use it to measure the additive levels in the oil to see if there are any differences between these oils. Up into the late 90s, only PAO and or ester-based motor oils were considered synthetic. But with the advent of hydrocracking of crude, Group 3 products became available. When Castrol switched their Syntec from the Group 4, Group 5, PAO and ester, to the Group 3, Mobil sued Castrol for false advertising, but Mobil lost the case. Since then, any oil made from a Group 3 base oil is considered synthetic. In fact, the GTL base oil that Shell uses to make the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum made from natural gas, that process is considered a Group 3. So when we hear the word synthetic, it refers to a lot of different possible combinations. It could be a hydrocracked crude. It could be a natural gas to liquids process, that GTL. It could be the PAO, the polyalphaolefin. It could be a synthetic ester or an alkylated naphthalene. It's a lot of different things that a synthetic oil can be, which can lead to a wide variety of performance properties. Now, some people like to say that a Group 5 is better because it's a higher number than a Group 3. I like to look at it a little bit different. Each base oil has its own pros and cons, and it's the job of the formulator to figure out how to put together those strengths to match the needs of the application. Because application always dictates chemistry. You just heard it. So let's jump right into these results, starting with the 5W20s. And we can see right here from these elemental analysis, all the additives, that they're pretty similar. There's a little bit of variation, but in reality, if you ran these same tests again and again, you're gonna see some scatter. So there's nothing really here that stands out on the additive package alone that says one of these oils is really different than the other. That extra calcium might be something in the extended performance, but what I can tell you for real is that change in oxidation is real. There's a little bit of difference here in the oxidation level with both the truck and SUV and the extended performance compared to the regular oil and the high mileage. We're gonna get to that in a second. But one thing I see right here from the viscosity results, that pre and post KRL test, the clear winner here is the truck and SUV. It sheared the least. It's often that we see oils shear out of grade. So this is a really good shear stable oil, that truck and SUV formula. Now, if you don't care about losing a little bit of fuel economy, go right ahead and use that because it's going to give you better bearing protection, especially if you're doing towing, which is why it's the truck and SUV formula. So I said a second ago, there's a real difference there between that oxidation level from the truck and SUV and extended performance compared to the high mileage and the regular. And we can see that right here in these FTIR results. This area over here to the left, that's the base oil range. And there's a little bit of variance there, but what's really key is over here in the fingerprint region. And we can see a definite difference right here. Both the truck and SUV formula and the extended performance contain an alkylated naphthalene. That's what's causing these little peaks right there in the formula. So these two products are clearly different, and that's backed up by the PDSC results. Remember, this is the oxidation stability, and we can see that all four oils are different. They each have a different onset time in terms of oxidation, and the extended performance has a completely different shape. The slope of as that oil begins to oxidize, it doesn't act the way the other ones do. The onset time for the regular Mobil 1 and the extended performance are pretty close, but like we said, the slope of the two is really different. The one that really stands out here is uniquely different. I would say it's the best one of the bunch, is the truck and SUV formula. Not only does it have a longer onset time, remember, it also had the alkylated naphthalene and the better shear stability. So of these four, if I'm choosing one, I'm choosing the truck and SUV formula. Fun fact, back when my dad still raced in NASCAR, I remember going to the Kmart in Daytona Beach, Florida, and buying every quart of Mobil 1 they had on the shelf. We used it in the race car and finished in the top 10 of the Daytona 500. I remember thinking, this must be the best oil in the whole world. Well, you can't go to Kmart and buy oil anymore, and the Mobil 1 you buy today isn't the same as it was back then. It was a tri-synthetic, a mixture of PAO, ester, and alkylated naphthalene. So that's the 5W20s. Now let's go look at those 0W40s. Again, some of these oils look really similar in terms of the additive package, except one, the new formula, that API SP version of the Euro FS, it's completely different than the others. EXP, the C40 GT, and the supercar oil, those additive packages, again, they're super similar, slight variations, but they're really, really similar. Like that, a little bit of extra ZDP in the supercar, that's probably real. But the big difference amongst these products is that Euro FS, the new API SP formula, where that calcium level has been chopped in half from where it used to be. Now it's 1,300 parts per million with about 1,000 parts per million or so of magnesium, a more balanced package, which allows it to be API SP. But the key thing is the change in the base oil. We see that the ester is gone because that oxidation level is much lower compared to the others. The previous formula of the European FS was a PAO ester that had that higher level of oxidation that comes along with that ester treat rate. You can see that in the others. They all have that high 30s oxidation, which is very typical for a PAO ester blend, but that's not what you see with the Euro FS. But before we go look at the FTIR to see a little more insight into those base oil differences, let's take a look at that shear stability. Because like always, and we saw it in the viscosity breakdown video, the 040 Euro FS, it shears out of grade. We see that all the time here at Speed Diagnostics in results. If you use Mobil 1 0W40, it's hardly ever still in grade. And you can see that it's sheared out of grade. It's 11.5, so it's beyond the 40 grade range. It's lower into the 30 grade range. But we see that the ESP and the C40 GT formula, they stayed in grade. They're shear stable. So this means they're using a different type of viscosity index improver, one that's more shear stable in those formulas. But what's surprising is that the supercar formula doesn't contain that. So if any of these oils I thought would have been the same, it would have been the ESP, the supercar, and the C40 GT. But they're not. You see true differences here in terms of shear stability. And when we look at the FTIR results, it's going to back that up. And as you can clearly see, these oils are different. Now what's interesting is that the C40 GT and the ESP at first glance look to be identical at first glance. Let's zoom in here a little bit and I'm going to show you those key differences between these two. So the blue and black line are the C40 GT and the ESP. And again, at first glance, they look to be overlaying each other. but we got to zoom in a little bit closer. And when we zoom in, we can see there's a little bit of difference right here in that peak and a little bit of difference right there in that peak. Now, these are very subtle differences compared to the other oils because they're mightily different. And we can see that drastically, especially zoomed in, how different the FS formula is compared to the supercar formula, compared to these two. But when we go look at the PDSC results, you're going to see that these little changes right here are actually leading to pretty big changes in terms of oxidation stability. And like I said, it's pretty obvious these four oils are not the same. When you look at these PDSC results, there's a distinctive difference in time on all four oils. Both of the track-ready oils have a shorter oxidation onset time compared to the street car formula, which is the Euro FS. It's almost twice as long onset time for the FS compared to the C40 GT. And you'd expect a track-only racetrack type oil to have a little bit shorter onset time because racing oils tend to be that way. They tend to have a little more wear protection and they give up a little bit of life for that. So we know the shear stability of the C40 GT is much better than the 040 Euro FS. Euro FS is probably better for the street. The C40 GT would definitely be better for the track, but you're not going to put as many miles on it. So there's that trade-off, and you can see those little chemical trade-offs in terms of performance that relate back to the chemistry differences we see in the FTIR, which is so cool that we can see all these little subtle differences. So 50 years ago, Mobil 1 started out with one oil. Today, there's tons of different Mobil 1s, each with their own unique little differences, be it a high mileage oil, that really cool truck and SUV formula, or these track formulas. They all have their unique differences to meet the needs of the application. I think someone says that from time to time, that application always dictates chemistry. And we see that Mobil 1 is bringing different chemistries to meet the different needs of these applications. So just for fun, let's go see how does that old Mobil 1 compare to new Mobil 1. And as we can see, these oils are not even remotely close to each other. Both oils have a completely different additive package. The current Mobil 1 isn't as shear stable as the old Mobil 1, but before we give it credit for that, we need to see that the oxidation value has changed. Back in our video about does old oil go bad, people said I was crazy for saying that oil goes bad. Well, here's the proof. Not only is the oxidation value completely different, right? We saw that a PAO ester blend, that oxidation level is usually going to be high 30s, low 40s maybe. Well, this is over 100. I read that as the oil has chemically broken down. It is degraded. It is oxidized. The proof that I'm right is the PDSC value. If this was just a high ester formulation, because over 100 on oxidation would mean that it's a full ester. That does not happen with Mobil 1. It has never been a full ester. It's always been a PAO ester blend. We're not seeing that with these results. In the PDSC value of 16 minutes for the old Mobil 1 compared to 63 minutes for the new Mobil 1, that just proves that the old Mobil 1 has broken down. It has oxidized. So there's the proof that new oil does go bad. For that video and others, check out one of these, and we'll see you next time.